Hello, my name is Haley Hawkinstead, along with Sophia Gavia, Gloria Guo, Cassie He, and Yuan Yao. The purpose of this presentation is to address the importance of innovative transportation through the discussion of the electric vehicle. We believe that increasing the community's knowledge and awareness of the EV will help Lincoln in becoming a more sustainable community. First, it is important to give a brief overview of what an EV is and why it is a sustainable option. These types of vehicles require electricity to run, and that is the main difference between them and gasoline-powered vehicles. There are a few types of EVs, but we are focusing on the battery electric vehicle because it is 100% reliant on electricity in order to run. Therefore, they produce zero carbon emissions. Hybrids and plug-ins are other types of EVs, but both of these require a certain amount of carbon in order to run. They can still be a more sustainable option than a gas-powered vehicle, but battery EVs are the most sustainable because they do not require any amount of carbon in order to function. The transportation sector plays a significant role in greenhouse gas emissions, for it accounts for roughly 25% of the world's carbon emissions. As shown in the diagram, road transportation accounts for approximately 70% of the various methods of transportation. Breaking this down further, 95% of road transportation vehicles are powered by gasoline, leaving just 5% of vehicles being powered by a different source. This explains why transportation is a major contributor to the rapid increase in carbon emissions. Creating a blueprint for the Lincoln community will encourage other cities to follow a similar trend, thus alleviating carbon emissions coming from transportation. There are lots of reasons why EVs have a minimal presence in the Lincoln community, but there are two reasons that are especially important. First, there is a lack of knowledge in the community about EVs, because a lot of people just don't know anything about them, and they don't know why they're more sustainable than other forms of transportation. Second, many individuals are unaccepting of the vehicles and are hesitant to change their lifestyle. Combining these two issues makes it difficult for the city of Lincoln to become more sustainable. There are currently 51 public charging station ports within the 10-mile radius of Lincoln, and we believe that strengthening the knowledge and confidence of Lincoln citizens will increase the demand for EVs, and in turn will increase the demand for more charging stations. There are a lot of benefits that come with owning an EV, and our purpose is to give Lincoln residents information about their benefits, as well as encouraging them to change their form of transportation. This will result in a more sustainable life for not only themselves, but also for the city that they live in. By implementing EVs into the city's culture, Lincoln would be contributing to 5 of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, them being Goal 7, Affordable and Clean Energy, Goal 9, Industry, Innovation, and Infrastructure, Goal 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, Goal 12, Responsible Consumption and Protection, Goal 13, Climate Action. In addition to the battery electric vehicle, there are a few other alternatives to transportation. These include the gas-powered vehicle, public transportation, the hybrid EV, and the plug-in hybrid EV. The gas-powered vehicle is the most common form of transportation in the Lincoln community, and the advantages of these are the lower vehicle price, longer range, and overall higher power. But these produce high amounts of pollution, so they are not considered to be a great alternative. Public transportation is another alternative form, and many people enjoy its advantages because of the reduced traffic congestion and cheaper price. However, the lack of privacy and inconvenience of public transportation tends to drive people away from this method. More sustainable alternatives are hybrid and plug-in EVs. Both of these have advantages such as reduced fuel dependence, cleaner energy, and less greenhouse gas emissions. But these also have their disadvantages, for they have a high maintenance costs as well as less available charging stations that are not evenly placed throughout the city. A case study that we identified comes from Columbus, Ohio. In 2016, the City of Columbus was the recipient of a U.S. Department of Transportation Smart City Challenge, where they received a $40 million grant as well as an additional $10 million grant with the purpose of accelerating EV adoption. Some of the things that they did in order to accelerate EV adoption was having partnerships with dealerships, as well as hosting a ride and drive roadshow to give people the chance to experience driving an EV and becoming more familiar with it. They also led by example by having switched most government vehicles to EVs or a hybrid vehicle, as well as making charging stations more accessible by making them available in workplaces, as well as big parking lots. The city also published a playbook for cities who are interested in making their city EV ready, and the playbook contains information about EVs and other resources. The City of Lincoln can benefit from the City of Columbus on how they built partnerships in the community to help accelerate the transition from gas-fueled to electric vehicles. There are a variety of advantages that come with owning an EV. First, the battery EV produces zero carbon emissions and significantly reduces noise pollution. Second, the build of an EV is simpler than that of a gasoline vehicle, so it allows for manufacturers to profit and thus continue producing vehicles for people to purchase. The simple build and profitability allow for the battery EV to be more commercially available for customers. There are a lot of benefits of having an EV, but there are some barriers that are currently keeping people from purchasing them. First is the lack of knowledge as well as the acceptance and willingness to switch to an EV. Then there's also the issue of vehicle and fuel costs, availability of charging facilities, and people believing that EVs do not fit into their lifestyle. For electric vehicles, compared with gas vehicles, the main differences are in the four major components: the power source, drive motor, speed controller, and vehicle charger. This is important for consumers to understand because it can make the vehicle maintenance less complicated, so it adds strength to the argument that the battery EV is a more sustainable option. Some sustainability considerations to keep in mind are natural systems, economic, and social factors. For natural systems, we identified the carbon and mineral cycle. The carbon cycle plays a role in the power source of the electric vehicle. The EV does not release any carbon directly, but in most of the electricity used to power the vehicle, it does. The mineral cycle is essential for having a mineral supply to build the EV's battery and other parts. Economic factors identified are the cost for an EV and the cost for building charging stations. And social factors include making EVs affordable and accessible to everyone despite their socioeconomic status. The success and popularity of the EV mainly relies on these economic factors. As the demand for EVs grow, the more the gap between EVs and gas vehicles closes. It is becoming more convenient for car manufacturers to invest in the EV market. Competition in the market incites innovation and gives more options for consumers, and the cost for a residential charging station may be unaffordable for lower-income individuals, but public charging stations would help accommodate these needs. Despite the prices of EVs going down, it has not yet reached a price point that is affordable for most low-income households. It is still more convenient for them to buy gas-fueled vehicles, although it is becoming a trend for young professionals to purchase used EVs because they are more affordable. Another factor to be considered is the equitable distribution of charging stations. The purchase of an EV often comes down to a customer's proximity to a charging station. When placing a charging station, it is important to ask the questions: who would most benefit from it being placed in this location? Is there someone who cannot have access to it? If so, what can be done to make it more accessible? Finally, cultural change is needed to accept the EV. Without the consumer buying an EV, there is no transition to becoming a more sustainable method. There needs to be a demand for EVs for the market to grow and for the government to support and take action on innovative transportation. Using private vehicles as a method of transportation is heavily ingrained in Lincoln's culture. The implementation of electric vehicles into the city's culture is an important step as Lincoln moves towards becoming more sustainable. As we have previously stated, the battery EV is a form of transportation that reduces carbon emissions. They also address the increasingly important discussion of climate change, as well as improving public health and our dependency on fossil fuels. To better implement EVs into the city, it is necessary to have informed customers. Having informed customers means providing basic education on EVs and help with identifying an EV model compatible to their needs. Policy is also needed to make the city EV ready and to make the transition to EVs more visible to the public. As new technology boosts the EV's efficiency, consumers will become more open to the idea of purchasing an EV. We believe that the drivers are the most important primary stakeholders, and this is because an increase in EVs impacts their career and brings more competition into their lifestyle. Additionally, private drivers will get to enjoy the convenience and environmentally friendly aspects of electric vehicles. The people of Lincoln are the secondary stakeholders, and this is because the EV's high price and welfare to low-income residents has a great effect on them. There's also the issue of charging station availability, as well as the impact of traditional transportation on the industrial economy. Collectively, Our group defined sustainability as balancing the input and output of resources in order to provide a good quality of life for current and future generations. Additionally, our environmental ethic is the relationship and moral rules between humans and the environment. We also believe that the utilitarian approach is the most appropriate for the electric vehicle because this is the most straightforward approach and focuses on the morals. It is also important to consider the manufacturing process of EVs because the supplier chain is critical in that it is important to know where our parts are coming from, and this is directly related to the utilitarian approach. Our recommendation for the City of Lincoln is first to encourage the market for EVs to grow and to welcome competition into the community. Second, in reference to the beginning of our presentation, Lincoln currently has 51 available charging stations within a 10-mile radius of the city, and this map shows where each of these are located. It is evident here that the distribution of stations is unequal, so we recommend finding ways to space these out more equally throughout the city. Third, increasing public awareness about the benefits of EVs and giving people in the community the knowledge that they need in order to make a purchase of an EV. From this project, we were able to identify steps that the City of Lincoln could take to successfully adopt the electric vehicle and become a more sustainable city. Lincoln is a city where the primary form of getting around is by driving a private vehicle. It has been ingrained into the city's culture, and it will be difficult to convince residents to start using public transportation. Electric vehicles allow for a compromise by being more sustainable and allowing residents to own their own vehicle. To successfully adopt the EV in the City of Lincoln, we need to make it more convenient to purchase and use the EV. There also must be more efforts to educate dealerships to increase sales, and consumers must be educated on the general aspects and benefits of the EV. We also learned that people feel more comfortable with EVs when they are exposed to them more. Local government can bring more awareness to EVs by leading by example and replacing government vehicles with electric ones like the City of Columbus did. We appreciate your time and look forward to answering any questions that you may have about the EV and how it can promote a more sustainable City of Lincoln.